I have an immense amount of creative energy.
Mm-hmm.
I just always have to be doing something. My wife references herself as a honey bee, where she's just a frequency holder. She's a bee, and I'm a honeydew. I'm like literally always doing things. I have to always be doing things. That'd be cool if over that we like. I'll make the beat.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, send me the beat. I'll remix it. Yeah.
My name is Robert. I like to go by Blob. You can call me whichever you want, whichever you're more comfortable with. I don't mind. I am 30 years young, and I really enjoy creating things. Music, art, friendships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Art-wise, you said music. What other mediums are you currently exploring?
Painting, and as of this year, I got into stone sculpting. I picked up a 21-pound rock on New Year's. I think it was the second day of the year, January 2nd. And by the 4th, I had this really cool sculpture of a hand. And yesterday, Sunday, 2 days ago, I just started sculpting marble, which is really fun.
Yeah, so this is a channel about religious experiences. What would you put down if there was you were filling in like a religion on your social media or something?
Whoa, what a good question. I think on my Facebook, it still says student of the universe. I think that's like what I put when I was like 22 or something. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's still accurate. I would say these days my beliefs, thoughts, opinions, forms of the divine follow more so the Hindu-Buddhist approach, tradition, thought, the relationship with the divine. But it's not necessarily that I follow those traditions verbatim.
Okay. Got it. And what type of church environment did you grow up in?
Yeah, I went to a Baptist church, Glenwood Baptist Church. It's now called Life Bridge, north of the river here in KC.
Okay.
And it was, a Baptist church, and I started going when I was young. I think I was a child growing up in the nursery, and then just kept going. And then at 18, that's when I went off to college, and I was still going to church in those times at the very beginning. And then I got introduced to meditation, and it just made more sense to me. The more that I meditated, it felt like I was actually forming a relationship with the divine, as opposed to going to a place where we just kind of read from a book and talked about these concepts. Yeah.
Okay. What are some of your strongest childhood experiences at that church?
I do very vividly remember singing songs. I would later go on to play in the church band, but we can talk about that in a second. My youngest experiences were really, singing the songs. I am a C, I am a CH, I am a CHRICIAN, all that stuff. My friends, I really remember after service we would play some sort of football or soccer type game out front of the church. I really enjoyed. Those were some of my biggest friends growing up. Even after leaving the church at 18 and getting married, 5 years after that, one of my groomsmen was one of my childhood friends.
Yeah.
So those are some of my strongest childhood associations with going to church. Another one just came to mind. I did Awanas.
Yeah, me too.
Approved workmen are not ashamed.
Yep.
Oh, Glob. Oh, wow. The Bible memorization program was, I still remember a lot of those.
Yeah.
For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Was that Romans 3:23?
Yes.
Whoa.
And the wages of sin is death is 6:23.
Dang. Okay, there we go. So I remember that, the Awana Olympics. Did you ever do that?
Yes, yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
The three-legged race. Our church, we developed a technique that other churches did not develop. We would literally lap other churches as we did it. The three-legged race. We were you know,
Damn.
trade secrets. Oh, youth group. Oh my, going to church camp. I
Yep.
remember one of my first girlfriends I got at church camp. I don't remember her name, but I remember we were at the pool, and I didn't kiss her or anything, but I remember she was my girlfriend, and we technically never broke up, so I think we're still dating. That's funny. The first time I ever really started playing bass, the electric bass, was in church. Those were my first like live performances. I remember Easter. I don't remember what grade I was in. I was maybe 14 or 15 or something. And I played at Easter, and I just came in with the funkiest bass line, and they were like, "Oh, great!" Because it was like, you know, all white people in this church with like very few exceptions. My family was among the exceptions, and yeah, it just felt really great to be able to know how to embolden the experience for everyone around. Even still today, one of my favorite things. Oh man, I could cry in this moment even just thinking about, like, whenever I play music and I can see that people are responding so viscerally to how I'm playing, it's just, it's nice.
Moving.
Yeah. March 11th, I'm playing with the salsa band at the Ship.
Oh, hell yes. We're there. We're so there. That sounds so great. That's perfect.
Oh, my mom is a saint. My mom is a beautiful human. My mom grew up, I'm not sure if she grew up Catholic. I know my grandma and my uncle who lives with her, they're Jehovah's Witness. But I'm not too sure about my mom's upbringing. My mom goes to church. She believes in Jesus, God, you know, the church version of it. But yeah, my mom is a very beautiful human. She works very hard, sacrifices a lot.
Yeah.
My dad is a really intense being. We haven't really talked much since last May.
Okay.
Since May of 2021. He grew up in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico on the western side, like straight west of Cancun, and he was among maybe, I think, 10 to 13 siblings. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But when he was 5, his father died in a house fire. He was smoking a cigarette, it fell in the newspaper and burned the whole house down. And my grandmother, who couldn't handle, she was also, there was a great age disparity. Like, my grandma's husband, like, rolled into town on a horse one day and saw my grandma when she was, like, 12 and was like, okay, I want to marry her, kind of thing. So my grandma, when my grandpa died, she took the youngest, maybe 1 or 2, and literally abandoned the rest. And my dad was among the abandoned.
Oh my God.
And so this is rural Mexico in 1940s, 50s, and he banded together with some of his brothers. They had to fend for themselves with machetes. An uncle of mine who passed from COVID in the past year, he had machete marks on his face. But that family, they all speak Mayan. There are 3 dialects of Mayan. There's Quiche, Cachiquel, and Yucatec, and they all speak Yucatec Maya.
Wow.
And I wish I had a better relationship with my dad because there's so much I wish I could. There's so much I know I could learn from him, but he has really intense issues allowing people to care for him or care about him. I'm certain it's because his mom left him. He told me that his mom never hugged him. His mom never told him that she loved him. My dad at one point told me that he never told my mom. In Spanish, there are a variety of different ways of saying that you love a person. You can say te quiero, which is like I want you, which is kind of like not I love you. Te amo is I love you. And he told me one day that he never told my mom te amo, which is really intense.
Yeah. What's the main obstacle to having a connection with your father?
Gosh, I was about to say something like he is, like expressing his thing. Mine is I get very angry very easily with him when communicate to the point where I don't communicate clearly. That's my main obstacle is that I get upset with him so quickly that I am not able to communicate clearly with him.
Yeah.
Whereas on his end, it's just really difficult for him to think that anyone cares about him. So essentially what happened, what like really what blew up, we went to Mexico last April, and the airline said you needed to show a negative test for COVID. My mom and I had the vaccine. My dad did not. My dad tested positive for COVID. With COVID, you can't hang out with that person. You can't be around them. They have to isolate. And my dad, already being such a sensitive person, felt that to mean that we didn't care about him, we didn't love him.
Oh, man.
Like, he took that so personally. And the last thing he talked to me before he ended up taking a bus, and we asked him where he was going. He's like, you don't even care. That's literally what he said. He's like, bro, yeah, I do. And we talked. He said that I owed him money or something. Like, what are you talking about? Why is this the conversation you're trying to have with me in this moment? And then he got out of the car, and then I didn't realize that it was him leaving. Like, that was him walking off with a suitcase. And the last thing we had talked about was him thinking I owed him money, and this was COVID, and he wasn't vaccinated. This was before even Delta. And, like, he could have died.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, I got Omicron, even after having the booster. And I guess my mom told him, and he sent me a WhatsApp message. And he's like, hey, I heard you got COVID. Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And then he said something, I don't even remember. I said, like, you're going to need to apologize to me before we can communicate. And he's like, I don't know what you need me to apologize for. And I'm like, this is what you need to apologize to me for. And he's like, I want my record player and my mandolin back. And I'm like, wow, how quickly things change. And he's like, I'm your father, you need to respect me. And I didn't respond.
I get it.
I went through a lot with trying to reconcile my relationship with him. There was one point when there was a Bible verse of, how I think Peter asked Jesus, like, how many times should I forgive a person? 7 times? And Jesus, like, 70 times 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so for a while I thought, okay, I'm going to, like, forgive my dad, thinking that forgiveness was something that I did for my dad.
Yeah.
Not recognizing that forgiveness is, later
100%.
recognizing,
Yeah.
that forgiveness is for the person, the self. And then I came to terms with the idea that, no, I have not come to terms with this idea. The idea that I can be without a dad. Plenty of people in this world don't have father figures. And, maybe I'm just among those. I think the hardest part about it is I want to know about my Mayan lineage. That culture is so vast and deep, and I'm so grateful to be a part of a tradition to be a part of that tradition. And I feel like my dad could be a bridge to that, but it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, hopefully it happens.
I hope so.
He just turned 70 last year, and I didn't even say anything to him on his birthday. But when I was somewhere between 11 and 13, well, I guess even before this, my dad never talked to me about sex.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about sex from the Discovery Channel, learning about how a sperm gets into an egg, this sort of thing. And
do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Right.
Do it again. Yeah. Bloodhound Gang. That was a good music video.
It is.
Yeah, so I was 11, somewhere between the age of 11 and 13. And we were in the bathroom. Oh, whoa. I guess we were in that bathroom. That means I was at least 15. Crazy. That literally just came to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was at least 15. And so I'd already learned about sex from the Discovery Channel. I think my dad tried to talk to me once before that about sex, but I told him, like, yeah, I watched the Discovery Channel, Dad. He's like, oh, okay. Then we got out. He, like, took me to the car in the driveway. And then I told him, we just walked back in. But there was this time, when I was around 15, and we were just in the bathroom, and my dad's like, son, if you want to find out that you're not gay, I can buy a prostitute for you. And I'd not had sex or like any sort of conversation about anything like that.
Jeez.
And in these past couple of years, as I've been recognizing myself as a sexual being, and in being able to recognizing it, that being the first step to developing a healthy relationship with my sexual energy, because I would definitely say that I have not had a sexual relationship, a healthy relationship with my sexual energy.
Yeah.
I fortunately, through my job, I get therapist conversations, and so I've been speaking with a therapist over the past 2 years, and recognizing how formative that conversation was with my dad about thinking that was how you approach sex, or just anything. Like, that was, I hadn't registered how intense that was until speaking with a therapist.
Yeah.
I remember I had a girlfriend, the first girlfriend that because I didn't have sex until I was 20, and it was with Catherine, my wife.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
not your wife, my wife.
Yeah, right? Because I knew that I knew that I had to wait until I was married to have sex. And even after being a couple years into college, still holding on to that. And I had my first girlfriend that I was physically intimate with, we didn't have sex, but we, played with each other.
Yeah.
I wanted to have sex, and I think I brought it up to my youth pastor or something, and I don't remember how the conversation went, but I eventually told my youth pastor or my mom, I don't quite remember who. Again, this is one of those really blurry memories. But I remember telling one of them, like, okay, well, if I can't have sex, then I don't want to believe in God. I remember saying that line. That's one of the things that really frustrates me about Christianity, is that, maybe not Christianity, I'm using Christianity to mean the organized religion aspect of it.
Totally.
Is that sex is just something that you don't talk about. Even when a couple gets married, they have to figure out sex on their own. But because, I wasn't supposed to masturbate, I wasn't supposed to have sex, I wasn't supposed to think about these things, I wasn't supposed to look at porn. Cumulatively, that developed into shame and guilt, where I didn't have a healthy relationship with my sexual energy, and that unhealthy relationship expressed itself has expressed itself in inappropriate ways, in ways that I'm regretful of. Not near the extreme of what that regret could be, but I regret how the inappropriate expression, the misuse of my sexual energy. But that's part of the growing process. That's part of the growing and the recognizing of what needs to happen and change to develop a healthy relationship. And I'm very grateful. Very grateful to say that I have a healthy relationship with my sexual energy right now.
I'm glad, because I'm trying to get there. Yeah. Let's talk about your interest in missions work.
The first thing that I ever wanted to be was a missionary. And in October of every year, our church had a missions conference. Our church sponsored missionaries, and they would always come. And I had such an interest in them, because they would always come with such cool stories about the countries they were in. Romania, Mozambique, Tanzania, Russia, just all these cool stories and all these cool trinkets and artifacts from the world that they would explore. I think that's what really inspired me to want to be a missionary at the beginning was wanting to explore the world. Huh, that's really fast. I only now am making that association, actually. That's cool. It wasn't necessarily about saving the souls, although, like, I guess I wanted to make my friends Christian. I don't know. Being evangelical was not necessarily something that I really intensely related to.
So how much did you believe it?
Huh. That's a good question because I don't know how to relate to that. I enjoyed going to church. I enjoyed the lessons that we were taught. I remember it was a Saturday and it was a freshman in high school, and I love soccer. I've been playing soccer for a long time. I remember watching soccer games with my dad. The World Cup was the most exciting time of every 4 years. And a Saturday, I did not make the soccer team. Oh, wow, was I sad. Oh, I could cry right now thinking about how sad I was not making the soccer team.
Yeah.
Mainly because I couldn't run a mile. Oh. I really think if I made the soccer team, that would have formed my life in a completely different path. I love soccer. To this day, I love playing soccer. But I didn't make the soccer team. And the next day, we talked about, I don't know, the church sermon was really related to it. Right now, I don't remember what it was, but I remember the next day thinking, oh, wow, how pertinent is this service? So, I really enjoyed those moments because they could lift me up from some of my saddest moments.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't know how much I believed it. I didn't necessarily... Honestly, the first time I ever related to the idea of heaven is when in Hindu Buddhist tradition, kind of Taoist, Shinto, a lot of Eastern religion has a lot of the same sort of approach to divinity, to energy, to existence. I'll leave it that vague because it is inherently a vague thing. The Tao Te Ching, their holy book is... in Taoism, the holy book is the Tao Te Ching, and it's a collection of maybe 82 to 86 verses. And the first verse says, the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. Meaning any words that we associate with the eternal are going to fall short because the eternal, divine, universe, God, whatever word you want to ascribe to it, again, not trying to say it's an inanimate object, it's just the gender neutralness of it, are going to fall short. Any word you try to ascribe to it is going to fall short because words are words. Words are conventions. Words all have associations and ideas with them. And the divine is infinitely greater than any word we can ascribe to it. So why even try? So it was my sophomore year of college, and I took maybe an intro to religions class or a world religions class. I don't quite remember. I went to a liberal arts school, which I'm really grateful for, to have dipped my toes in all of the different areas of everything. And in these world religion, I think it was, intro to world religions, we learned about meditation. And already at that time, I had some sort of fascination with the idea of the person that just, the ascetic. The person that lives in the forest, or the person that lives in the cave, and you're just like, you're there. And so I sort of had this affinity toward the idea of meditation. And so I did some research. I was studying the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. I started doing meditation, and I kept journals around that time. And I remember a journal entry from that time that said, today I was meditating on Jesus' love. And so there was a little bit of overlap. I remember in college I went to a church service, and I took notes during the service, and I sent the pastor this very, very in-depth and detailed email, and he responded saying like, "What? This is the most in-depth, detailed email I've ever received." But Christianity just lacked. It lacks. I want to be careful with what I'm going to say. I suppose it's very similar to some modern science where it lacks an understanding, not saying that I do, but lacks this understanding of the infinite being infinite and beyond comprehension. Because in science you have these things called rationalization, where you have infinite numbers that in order to work with them you have to rationalize them and put them into them.
Yeah.
But in doing so you literally have changed the entire thing because it's not an infinite thing. So to work with it is already just a hypothetical.
Yeah.
So I think, Christianity is kind of the same way, where there's just this lack of an understanding of how ununderstandable infinity is.
Mm-hmm. Given where you're at, like what you believe, like how do you see Christianity as like an organization?
I see it negatively.
Uh-huh.
Honestly, because of how much of a negative impact it has on sex, people's sexual relationships, and the frequency of sexual assault.
Mm.
I think that if the shame and guilt were removed from Christianity around sex, if people were able to feel more comfortable with forming healthy relationships with their sexual energy earlier, through just acknowledging sexual energy as a thing instead of just brushing it under the rug, I think that honestly all humans would be better.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about sexual energy, because I know you're very like intentional of using that phrase as opposed to maybe sexuality or something else
Sure.
more like conventional, I guess. Like what does that mean to you?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. As opposed to sexuality.
Which is what I would probably say.
Sure. Okay, so I would say sexuality is an attraction to an individual or a specific body, biology, or structure, architecture. Sexual energy is just... I would say it's synonymous with creative energy. So the chakras are this system of energy centers within the body. The base is survival, associated with the color red. Above that is creative energy, which that sits right in the perineum, essentially, which is right there. And I would honestly say sexual energy and creative energy are synonymous, because creating a human via sex is creative energy. And I have an immense amount of creative energy.
Mm-hmm.
I just always have to be doing something. My wife references herself as a honey bee, where she's just a frequency holder. She's a bee, and I'm a honeydew. I'm like literally always doing things. I have to always be doing things. That'd be cool if over that we like... I'll make the beat.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, send me the beat. I'll remix it. Yeah.
And so I would say that this... Wow. This is a really good question, actually. I want to talk to my therapist about this. About what sexual energy is. I have a lot of creative energy, and that inherently is sexual energy, I would say.
Okay.
And that's not a bad thing to have a lot of.
Yeah.
Gosh darn it. That's something that I've learned. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to have a lot of sexual energy. That's just how some of us are. And to demonize it just yields worse results.
Absolutely. So tell me about your meditation practice, or like your any spiritual practices that you observe now.
Yeah, so I've been meditating for 11 years now. And it's been such an interesting experience. I've been initiated into some meditation practices. I've led meditation instructional sessions for veterans. Used to host meditation sessions at home. meditation is such a nice practice. Because essentially what it is, I like to think of concentration or the mind. Let's say concentration. I like to think of concentration as another muscle that you can like really get buff with.
Okay.
And meditation is the way of getting your concentration ripped.
Damn.
Because because okay, essentially with meditation, you devote your concentration to one thing, your anchor, I'll call it. It can be your breath, it could be focusing on your attention through your chakras, it could be focusing on one chakra, it could be your posture, it could be how you're doing your yoga pose, it could be the painting you're working on. Meditation could be a bunch of things. But you have your anchor. And I really enjoy seated meditation. There really is something exceptionally special about having your spine very upright and vertical. In Eastern traditions, they call it the shashunam, that channel that energy can pass through. And there's this meditation that I was initiated into called Kriya Yoga. Yoga is a Sanskrit word meaning union with the divine. Kriya means royal. And we could go on for days talking about how I learned about that through the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. But we won't go into that right now. But I learned about that meditation practice, and it's wild. You know, at its minimum, it's about 45 minutes, and they say with that meditation practice, you are burning the seeds of past karma. And I would sweat. I would just be drenched with sweat after a 45-minute session of Kriya Yoga. So that was a really intense thing.
Okay, so you never really bought Christianity on like a conceptual level. Like you never really.
I suppose not.
Not really. So my question is then, what about like these Buddhist principles like chakras and stuff? Do you feel like confident being like, yeah, I fuck with that idea?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have experiential knowledge of it.
Okay.
And that's the interesting thing about these more spiritual approaches to the divine, is that they require the individual to devote the time to objectively approach them and engage with those techniques. Because to meditate will inherently lead one to form a relationship with the divine. And you know, that requires you to be vulnerable and open to having a relationship with the divine.
So it's kind of an invitation to like do the work to experience the thing then.
Yeah. And again, doing the work is part of the developing the self-discipline.
Right.
You know, do you meditate in the morning or every day? That sort of thing. Like, I don't meditate every day. Not anymore, at least. I was like consistent about it, but I did today. I did it this morning. I sat for 10 minutes, and it's just so nice to see how elongated I can get my breath, just how still I can be. Yeah.
So what do you like to do for fun? Is it the creating, or do you have to take a break from the creating and do more mindless things?
Wow. The initial answer that comes to mind is existing. But yeah, you know, enjoying existence is not always an easy thing. I've certainly had moments or periods of time where I did not want to live. The first of those was when I realized how much student loans I signed myself up for.
Yeah.
But last October, I finished those off. My goal was to pay off my student loans before my 30th birthday, and I killed it in October.
That's fucking sick.
Like, 4 months? 4 months before my 30th birthday. That's awesome. I do not have student loans. I do not have student loans.
Congrats. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, that was... Oh.
That's good shit. Exist. That's very general. What do you do specifically for fun?
To have fun? Gosh, okay, I mean, I guess this kind of goes into the idea of heaven and hell.
Okay.
Where, you know, the question is, what do you do for fun? The response is exist. The explanation is anything that is occurring can be fun. Anything, depending on your perspective on whatever's happening can be fun. And that is 100% easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wear this bracelet. It says "Enjoy the ride," and it was a friend of mine made these to give out at her father's funeral, and he wore a copper bracelet that said "Enjoy the ride."
Wow.
And there was another point in time when a friend asked me what I thought the purpose of life was. I said to enjoy it. Because what else are we doing? I mean, this is such a weird experience we are all having.
Yeah.
Might as well enjoy it.
I don't know what else we can shoot for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm walking without you. It's never been this way. I'm walking without